Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a midweek video without previewing a game for Celtic. That's right, no midweek fixtures anymore. No involvement in the Champions League tonight, sadly. We're just here to fill some airtime. And I thought this was a good opportunity to do a sort of opinion piece on everything that transpired with that Alistair Johnston story, which kind of flew under the radar at the weekend. But in saying that, I feel like there's something that comes from it, something that I feel we could talk about today. So bear with me, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Lennon Miller. In a way, it feels like a sort of mini Celtic transfer talk. So aye, let's do that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Thank you for all your support this season, and we're now on the final stretch. The last portion of the season is upon us. Keep your support up right till the final whistle. Hit like and subscribe. Let's do this video, shall we? So over the weekend, a story broke via The Athletic that there was interest down south in Alistair Johnston. David Ornstein of The Athletic, who has become one of the most reliable sources when it comes to transfers in world football, reported that there is interest from the English Premier League in our right back. Interest we really don't want to hear about, and hopefully interest that is minuscule at best. However, this is what he said in The Athletic's Q&A over the weekend, that he has heard murmurs that Fulham are showing interest in Alistair Johnston, and that interest was apparently there in the January transfer window, but with no official bid lodged. He wrote that he knows that Alistair Johnston's generating attention from clubs in England, with Fulham among the admirers. Now, Fulham aren't the only admirers, because he goes on to say from what he hears it's not only them, that Ipswich as well are another club who are looking at him. Johnston was named in the best FIFA Men's 11 last year, so this is probably no surprise, and I'd expect more suitors to emerge from the Premier League and across Europe this summer. So that was one story that broke over the weekend, which led into one from a far less reputable source yesterday morning. Because Inter Milan fan site Inter Live have reported over the past couple of days that Inter are looking at the king of assists from Scotland, who happens to be Alistair Johnston. If you read their article, it says the new right back behind Dumfries is a surprise name from Scotland. Alistair Johnston is among candidates to sign for Inter Milan, and they will look at him over the summer transfer window. Could be very useful to Inter, and could be at the cost of just under 10 million euros. Now, I want to caveat this story by saying it comes with no real sources. It's just an Inter Milan fan-run site. I mean, the price of 10 million euros or below 10 million euros seems like nonsense in the first place, because I don't see Celtic letting Alistair Johnston go for that. But nonetheless, the bigger picture is here that David Ornstein has reported that there's interest down south, solid interest down south, that there will be rumours starting over the next few months of reports across the continent of interest in Alistair Johnston. This is something that we do need to prepare ourselves for, brace ourselves for, because it's undoubtedly going to be something that comes about. Rumours aside, stories aside, legitimate or not, the purpose of this video today isn't to talk about Alistair Johnston's potential move elsewhere. The point in this video today is to give my opinion on what this means for Celtic, and what it means for Celtic moving forward, and ideally, what takes us to the next level. Because hearing these stories where you see Alistair Johnston linked with Fulham Football Club and Ipswich Town says to me that it's time for us to start saying no. Alistair Johnston has been one of Celtic's star performers this season, one of the most consistent performers this season, and an invaluable asset to our side. One of the key players in European games, in derby games, in winning trophies. He has been called as the next Celtic captain by many. And listen, I'm going to take that point aside for a moment. We don't need to talk about who's going to be next Celtic captain, because I don't think it matters right now. But what matters is the importance of Alistair Johnston to this Celtic team. And for too long, Celtic have sold their best assets for fees that quite simply aren't large enough to sides who aren't near Celtic's level. Celtic are a Champions League winning side. 1967 might be a long time ago, but we done it. We won the European Cup. Fulham haven't, Ipswich Town haven't, and they never will. Celtic are playing in the Champions League year in, year out at this point. Fulham Football Club aren't, Ipswich Town aren't. Celtic are one of the most followed clubs in world football. You go anywhere in the world, you will see a Celtic shirt. I don't go to America, Spain, Greece, Turkey, and see Fulham and Ipswich shirts, I see Celtic shirts. It is time for Celtic to start acting like the big club that they are. It's time for Celtic to start saying no to the Ipswiches and the Fulhams of the world. We sold Van Dijk, Wanyama and Fraser Forster to Southampton. If Celtic really want to take the next level that Brendan Rodgers has so often spoke about, Alistair Johnston in this summer window, should these bids come in, is the prime example for us to turn round and say, no, we're not doing it. Now I get it, it's all very well and good me sitting here saying that when the football landscape has changed significantly. There has been a seismic shift in power in football. No longer can the Celtics and Rangers of this world have the pool power that they may have had even 25 years ago. Fulham and Ipswich are in the Premier League, and that's where the money is. They have the big bucks not only to offer Celtic for transfer fees, but to offer in wages for the likes of Alistair Johnston. But it's time for us to start changing things. It's time for us to start acting like big boys. And Brendan Rodgers has spoke so openly, so candidly about where he wants to take this side and how he wants to take us to the next level. We aren't going to get to the next level if we keep selling our best players to the likes of Fulham, to the likes of Brighton, to the likes of Ipswich. So it's time for Celtic to say no, and it's time for us to put better offers on the table for our best players. Let's have a look at the Premier League table very quickly. Ipswich Town, I think we can kind of put them aside for a moment. Let's take them out the conversation right now, because the likelihood is that they will go down this season. They have a fighting chance, never say never, they might survive, but they find themselves 5 points adrift from 17th place Wolves at the minute, with only 3 wins to their name. It isn't looking likely that they'll stay up, and if that is the case, how on earth would Alistair Johnston justify a switch from Celtic to Ipswich? I think we can take them out of the equation for the moment. But let's have a look at the Premier League table again. Fulham, 9th place in the Premier League right now, into the quarter-finals of the FA Cup, and only a couple of points off of a European place. Next season, there is a legitimate conversation that Fulham could be playing European football. Marco Silva has done really well. They have been bankrolled by the Sadiq/Tony Khan ownership. There's a lot of money involved in Fulham right now, and I'm not going to be naive about things and say that Celtic can compete with that Premier League firepower. But what Fulham don't do is sign players from Scotland onto contracts that are way above what they're currently on. I don't see a world in which Alistair Johnston is offered £100,000 a week at Fulham Football Club. I see him being offered a wage rise. I could even see him being offered double his wages. But they don't offer the same the same incentives that you get at Celtic by playing Champions League every year, by playing in front of 60,000 people every week, by playing for trophies, for trebles season after season, and by starting games of football every game of the week. That's what you get at Celtic, and that's not necessarily a guarantee at Fulham. And a lot of players who have left Celtic in recent months and years can attest to that. Matt O'Reilly has left for Brighton, and granted fitness and injury issues have kept him on the bench a lot, but it's not exactly been rosy for him there. Kyogo is at Rennes and already being tipped with a move away from the side because he's got a combined total of 83 minutes since joining. And Jota is the prime example of somebody who went somewhere for the money, where the grass could have and should have been greener, and has ended up back at Celtic. Moving away from Celtic for one of these big money moves hasn't exactly panned out great for everybody who's done it. And that's what we need to start drilling into our own players and trying to keep them around for a good time here at Celtic. Now, I am not for a second suggesting that Celtic will go out and offer Alistair Johnston a £100,000 a week contract. Christ, I'm not even going to sit here for a second and say we could offer him £50,000 a week. But what I am saying is it's maybe time for Celtic to reconsider the wage structure at the club. Maybe it is time for Celtic to consider what it takes to take us to the next level. We have a solid basis here. A solid base to move forward with in Europe, with players who have constantly overperformed. And to keep selling them on and trying to find the ideal replacement isn't going to take us any further in Europe. It's just going to be resetting the system constantly. You need to keep around some of these key players, and Alistair Johnston is one of them. So this, in a situation like this, should Fulham come calling with £15-20 million for him this summer, say no. It's time to say no. This season alone in the league, Alistair Johnston has contributed to 11 goals from the right back position. You throw in an assist in the Champions League, you throw in an assist in the League Cup. He is, getting up there, and by the end of the season, I'd imagine he'll be on almost, or maybe even at least 20 goal contributions. You go to his whole career and you can see that he contributes to goals, especially this season. He's been unbelievable. And Celtic know he's one of the best players. Us as fans know he's one of our most important players, and when he's out, we struggle on that right-hand side. So why risk losing him permanently and having to replace a player of that quality when you can do so much more to try and keep players at the club? As I said, I know it's not easy. I know it's not an ideal situation for Celtic to be competing with the billionaires league that is the Premier League. But it's time for us to put our foot down. It's time for us to try and keep players around here. Alistair Johnston, we know how much he loves it. Do I think that Fulham is the glamorous move that he's been waiting his whole career for? No, not for a second. I know it's nice down in London, and staying down there in London's West End would be lovely. So what? He likes it here, and let's give him a reason to remain liking it here. Let's keep these players. Let's reward these players. Let's give Brendan Rodgers the best tools available and possible to take us to the next round of the Champions League. Alistair Johnston is one of those tools, and there's so many other players like that. Big money's hard to knock back sometimes, but for the greater good, I think Celtic need to start doing it. Talking about the tools to move forward in Europe, we have got a transfer update in regards to Lenny Miller, and Celtic are reportedly still interested in signing him this summer transfer window. This comes after the video I done a few days ago. I'll give a shout out to that if you've not seen it already, where Lenny Miller commented on his future. You can go and watch that from a few days ago. However, the Daily Record reported last night that Lenny Miller's transfer to Celtic is still alive, as interest is going nowhere with the summer move being eyed up. Scott Burns of the Daily Record reported that Celtic are continuing to keep close tabs on Motherwell star Lenny Miller ahead of a potential summer bid. We did make contact at the end of the the winter transfer window, but obviously with the whole situation going on there, it didn't come to anything. He still remains at Motherwell. He has recovered from his injury, and we'll see out the season there, of course. But, however, very much active. The scouting team are doing regular reports for Brendan Rodgers, and Celtic rate Miller very highly, and are aware that a number of top clubs across Europe, including Eintracht Frankfurt, are keeping tabs on him. They have turned down multiple bids from Italian side Udinese and Union Saint-Gilloise in the last window. But they are in no rush to sell him out of contract at the end of next season, and it looks as though this will be their last chance to make money on him. I'd assume with all these clubs interested, the likes of Udinese, as we mentioned a moment ago, Union Saint-Gilloise, one of the biggest clubs in Belgium, Celtic, Eintracht Frankfurt, with all of this interest, he will get a move at the end of his Motherwell contract, and I don't see him signing a new Motherwell contract when he's aware of all this interest. So the summer window will present the last opportunity for Motherwell to make big money, or close to big money. Now, as you see at the end of this article, they talk about Motherwell are looking for a fee which exceeds the 3.25 million that they received for David Turnbull, and I guess that the cards are more in Celtic's. We have the advantage in negotiating, considering Neil has a year on his deal, but just pay it. I know I sound like a terrible businessman here. Yes, of course, negotiate. But if £3.5 million for one of Scotland's best youngsters, I don't know, man. I would just pay it. I have a very good feeling that Lenny Miller will be a Celtic player next season. Who knows, we might loan him out at this young age to keep him playing football every week. Maybe Brendan Rodgers has a plan to implement him in the first team. I can't make these assumptions, I don't know yet. But I think he will be a Celtic player next summer, as long as we take the negotiations seriously and we don't let clubs beat us to the signature. I sound like a broken record, but we need to learn the lessons from the John McGinn situation, where we took it lightly, we didn't take it seriously enough, and we let Aston Villa beat us to the signature. We can't let that happen with Lenny Miller. I think he's a key signing for Celtic in this summer window. And I know I've seen a few people comment on my video the other day going, oh, he's not that good. He's an 18-year-old lad who has so much more development to go through. And what you see of him at age 18 is enough to suggest to me that come age 23, 24, we could be talking about one of Scotland's best players. It's a gamble, of course it is, but every signing is a gamble. Arne Engels was a gamble. Kasper Schmeichel was a gamble. Doesn't matter what age or what fee you're paying. A signing is either going to be good or bad. They're either going to come good or bad. So I think the fees are relevant. I think who's playing for us are relevant. I think he looks like a decent player. He obviously fits that homegrown quota as well. We do need Scottish players in this side. It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. So I hope we continue this scouting process from now to the end of the season. And I hope we give Motherwell what they're looking for. Or at least don't try and take the piss out of them in negotiations. Right, that does it for today. I think if we take away anything from today's video is that I'm a terrible businessman, and it's good that I'm not the one in the boardroom at Celtic Park. You know, I'm sitting here saying, no, let's knock back 20 million for Alistair Johnston and just give Motherwell what they want for Lenny Miller. But I think you can get the kind of sentiment of what I'm trying to say. I think it's a very pivotal summer for Celtic coming up. A huge summer, one that could be era-defining. I would go as far to say that. I think this is an era-defining summer transfer window for Celtic, where we need to play our cards right, keep our best players, strengthen in the right areas, and take European football as seriously as we can. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below. If you've enjoyed, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.